Yeah.
The sexual benefits, of course. I see a pretty interesting spike in retest.
You have such a surplus of E1 in your body that it makes it difficult for E2 to bind to the receptor site. And so you get this like induced state of like low estrogen.
Young pro, when I did his blood work, and I'm just like, wait, what are you taking? Blood work was trashed. One of the compounds I remember was Superdrol.
In a second. What's up, everyone? This is a special 1D Talks episode led by me, which is not usually the case. But we got Tanner here. Tanner Tattered. Is Tattered your last name? Or is that the
Instagram? It's the last name I prefer. Yeah.
It's your stage name?
Yeah. You can say it like that.
All right. I should have put mine as Troponin then. All right, but I'm excited to have you here. This is going to be a little bit different than our usual setup because usually I'm kind of the color commentary on this. I'll be leading the questions, so bear with me if I look a little out of sorts. But Tanner, you're a guy I've been following for a while on Instagram before we even contacted you. But we recently contacted you to kind of get more involved with what you're doing because I really like what you're doing on TikTok. So give us a little background, I guess, on how the whole that persona started, how your Instagram thing started, and was it planned, mapped out, or did you just kind of fall into it?
Yeah. So funny enough, it was about May of last year. So it's still really early to all of this. I had gotten started seeing people posting on TikTok all the time. I followed a bunch of creators myself, and I started thinking to myself, yeah, I wonder if I could just like start posting videos for fun. And I started posting consistently. It was basic content that most other people put out there. The usual motivational content you'll see a lot of people post, or just like an occasional physique update, things of that sort. And then down the line, as that was all going on, I also like to research the pharmacology on the side. And I would see a lot of comments online, a lot of misconceptions, especially guys in my age group, about what gear actually does. Does it give you superpowers? Do you fly? Or like, is it actually bunk and doesn't really do anything? And you can be a IFBB pro natty, all of these things, right? So with all that controversy, I decided to put out a video, and I was like, if you use gear, you're going to look like Chris Bumstead in a year. And the answer is obviously that's so far from the truth. And it got a lot of attention, a lot more than all of my other videos. And I started thinking to myself, maybe there's a niche here where there's a lot of guys that are my age, don't really know even the basics of gear, doesn't require a ton of expertise on my end to just teach them through the first couple stepping stones of this stuff, and see if that would actually be content that's appreciated in the community. And so video after video, that following starts building, and I basically end up at the position I'm at today.
So yeah, this is interesting to me because I came up, long like before the internet and everything, and so it was a very different world because it was almost impossible for us to get information. I mean, we knew nothing about it, and so which is good and bad because the good part was when you got a little bit of information, it was generally from someone who was knowledgeable, who gave their personal experience or something, and so you didn't get as much information at all, but you got far less misinformation. Where now there's so much information, and so much of it is so bad, and it's almost kind of set up to be that way because well, you can imagine if someone's giving advice about a gear on the internet, especially if they're an older person and been in the game a long time and they're not like a top level bodybuilder, then you shouldn't listen to them because whatever that hasn't been working for them,
Right.
or like the top level information now people have to pay for, and so it's almost like set up for bad information to get pushed around because if it was working for the people, they wouldn't be giving it away for free. And so it's like a totally different scenario where when I came up, we just did not get information. We didn't know anything. And you got little blips, and it tended to actually be good blips, but it was so little. Where now there's so much information. You get the range from incredibly wrong in this direction to incredibly wrong in that direction. Yeah. And like with anything, the truth is somewhere in the middle. And so it's cool to see someone actually coming along. And this is the way I knew it would need to work, because I say, like, if you're giving away for free, it's bad information. And so like right away, someone would say, well, isn't Tanner giving it away for free? And it's yes and no, because you're creating a business around it. I mean, whether that's your plan or not, that's what, that's what the potential is. You get 100,000+ followers on Instagram, you have a pathway to make six figures, in income, just based on the the interaction you get from those followers. And so it isn't for free in that case. And so that's really the way it needs to be. And that's like, at the end of the day, that's where the good information is going to be. And that's kind of where you're settling in.
Yeah.
So it was last May. And so have you seen like pretty steady growth as far as followers and things ever since then? Or has there been jumps? And
It's been some peaks and valleys. The most interesting thing is I had a lot of viewership on TikTok, and then it also raised some controversy. The idea of spreading publicly free information about this kind of thing, especially to a very young audience, that can be really controversial.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you're delicate with the things that you're handling, and that you're telling people that, you know, it does have side effects. It's not, you know, all sunshine and rainbows, right? Despite that, a lot of really big creators did make videos about me. And so that brought a lot of attention, both good and bad. And so you'd see my following count spike during these times. Also, at the same time, there would be violation spikes. There's a phenomenon where people will mass report a lot of your videos, as in reporting all of your videos, and then that could end up getting your account banned or deleted. So I dealt with some struggles there. My account was permanently banned for a little bit, and then I got it back and then lost it again. But during that time, I'd been translating over to Instagram. And Instagram was really interesting. I put out, I think it was one video that brought me from about like 1,000 followers that I had previously all the way to 15,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then pushing consistently from then on to break into the 20,000s, to break into the 30,000s. It all seems to be a game of consistency. And it's really nice to see that people who reach out to me, I have a lot of people who DM me. They're very supportive, and they regularly tell me like, hey, you know, I told all my friends about your stuff. Like, it really helped me, man. And you can see that word of mouth start developing around your content as well.
Yeah, and that's where you get, you know, conversions are what matter. Like, you know, eventually, if you build this into some kind of business where you sell things, you want an engaged audience, and that's another tricky thing, is because, you know, TikTok, people follow people on TikTok, but people just go to the For You page, you know, generally, yeah. And so TikTok's a different thing where the engagement is generally extremely low. But the follower and view count can get incredibly high. And so it's a really weird mechanism where, and in Instagram, you can get that also. There's a lot of, not a lot, but there's, you know, quite a few bodybuilders or powerlifters or things like that with really high follower count, but very low engagement. And you'd think, right, well, are they buying their followers? And it's not. It's because it'll be something like if you're a great deadlifter, you know, and you do a set of 700 for 8, and then, you know, and you're jacked and you scream into the camera after, you know, thousands of people are going to pass and be like, oh, that was pretty cool, and click follow, but they're not really following you. They just thought that was an interesting lift. And so right, you'll see, you know, they'll get really high views, but really low likes and comments, you know, and it's because it's a different kind of following. It's not an engaged following, where yours seems to be like a really engaged following, which you know, is, because I own businesses, so my mind's always like being as it from a monetization standpoint, and that's how, you know, that's really what the goal is. So do you still do TikTok? I mean, I'm on TikTok, but I don't follow it as much, so I don't know.
Yeah, so my videos, I create them on TikTok, and then I save them in a way that it removes the TikTok watermark, and then I post them on Instagram.
Smart. Gotcha.
So there's a little bit of an incentive of, you know, if you want to see my videos first, then you'll try to bring people from my Instagram over to my TikTok. But my TikToks have been banned 5 times. I'm on my 6th account now. So what I did recently, and hopefully TikTok isn't listening, but I bought a new phone. And the idea is that they have identified the IP address of my old phone. And so if they see me make a new account on that, then it's done anyway. So, you know, I'm grasping at straws here, but there might be a chance for success there.
Hey,
all right, we got our leader back. So we talked about a bunch of embarrassing topics, and we zigzagged around with no direct line of thought. But
that's what was my plan.
All right, perfect. I asked him what if he was a tree, what type of tree would he be? I know that's one question you like.
Yeah. What type of tree? What did you pick?
He said a spruce.
Spruce.
Yeah, see, I forgot.
Yeah.
Already.
Whoops.
Nice. Well, good stuff. Well, thanks for hopping on with us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we could probably start over because I was pretty terrible. I don't lead the interviews very well.
If you guys have the time, I can make up for it on the other end.
Oh yeah, appreciate it, man. Like, I don't know what's going on. So I just like moved all the USBs around finally after like tons of troubleshooting other stuff, and then it just voila. So go figure.
Hmm.
So good times. Let's see here. I'm trying to get your stuff pulled up. Yeah, so we found you, Tanner, because you were giving us a shout out. We appreciate that little shout out on Instagram. So we started messaging.
I think I was already following you before that, actually, because Joe said something about following you, and I went to go follow you, and I already was. I was like, oh, weird. But
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, what so I guess we'll start kind of from there. Just you started, if I understand correctly, you're about to get into competing soon, right? Are you?
Yeah. Coach puts me about 17 months out, so I have a little growing to do.
Okay.
Who are you working with?
Justin Mahaley.
Cool. He's got a good first name.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, him and Ross Flanagan are co-owners of the same coaching company. Ross is a really cool guy. I mean, especially after winning Cali Pro too. Huge.
Yeah, he looked good there. We did a live stream of it. We because he stepped on stage and it was like, wow, because no one was expecting that. We thought for sure. We didn't think we thought it was going to be boring. We thought Tonio was going to repeat,
sweep it again. Yeah.
And then Ross came on. We're like, holy shit, he's going to pull this off.
Yeah.
And then he was fired up.
Yeah, he did good at the what did he do at the Toronto Pro? Was he second or third?
I don't remember. Toronto was wild because people looked really good at Toronto, and that's not always historically that great of a show. But because Blue, goddamn Stuart Blue, right?
Stuart Sutherland.
Yeah, Sutherland. Beef Stew. God, yeah. What am I? My brain doesn't. I'm terrible with names. I'm so bad with names. It's embarrassing. Yeah, but he looked even better, I thought, than he did at New York, and didn't place as well. Or God, I'm blurring they're all blurring together because we did live streams in New York, California, and Toronto. So now I don't even know what show I'm thinking of.
Yeah, no, he was a second at New York. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And he made a serious push for Tonio in New York. Yeah. And then I think he looked even better in Toronto, and then just didn't place as well. That's to show how good the show was there.
Yeah. So so what got you kind of started with all this? Because right, like you're doing a lot of different content. I see there's like hair stuff, men's health, a lot of hormone stuff. You mentioned 17 months out trying to do some growing to compete. Where did all this kind of begin for you?
Yeah, so the initial starting point was I'd had TikTok for a while. It was an app that I followed a couple creators. I was starting to get an idea of what my goal physique was like, and following guys on there. I got an idea of the content, and I was thinking to myself, I could probably do something like this, maybe just post content. And it was over the summer. I was done with classes. I thought it might be fun. So I started posting things regularly. What really caused the switch was I noticed a lot in comments and just in videos, many people had distorted views on enhancements, especially in my age group. Sure. A lot of people said, oh, they're discrediting something like Chris Bumstead's physique because he's on gear. And like, oh, I could do that if I hopped on gear. Very naive comments. So of
course
exactly. But they won't, right? They never will.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. But that's what everyone thinks, and that's like that's why gear is really an interesting thing, because that's what you think, and so you're so excited to try it. And when you first try it, and that's what you realize is that it isn't magic, and it's really like what you expect to be like the most exciting and uplifting phase of your lifting turns into like almost a depressive phase where you're like, geez, I still have to work really hard. This is not what I thought was gonna. I thought this was gonna be. I wake up the next morning and you look like C-Bum.
Yeah, but so I took that and I ran with it, and I made a video talking about how these are unrealistic expectations. You've got to keep in mind this, and this. And the video really took off. It had way better traction than any of my other videos, and so I started thinking to myself, maybe there's a niche here. There's a lot of guys online who are young, and when you're a younger guy, you don't really want to take advice from some older guy. It's just like typical.
We found out the hard way about that one.
Yeah.
So why you're on.
Right. Yeah. So you have some guy your age coming at you saying like, hey, listen, man, this is just how it is.
Right.
They're a lot more receptive to that. And they've told me how much they appreciate the kind of things I'm saying and, putting them on the right track. And then I just kept leveraging that. I found that was my niche, and then pushed and pushed, finding that, there's a lot of basic information that these guys just don't have. They have no idea what's good info and what's bad info. So I kind of try to meet them in the middle there.
Well, that's one of the things I think, I'm sure Justin can speak this too, but that really interests us in your content and just in that age group. Because Justin and I met, we were in you were what, 23, Justin?
Probably. I was just married. Yeah.
I think I'm 2 years younger than you. So I was 20, 21, and I competed in my teens. And so we kind of like going back to like, what's that age group like? I help out a little bit in some strength conditioning stuff, but we're pretty far removed from it.
I got kids almost in that age group.
Because your oldest daughter's 18, right?
Yeah. She's going to Michigan State in the fall.
So yeah, we're like, let's just have a conversation. Like what is it, like today versus when we were in that range?
What does the youth like?
Tren. They like Tren.
Yeah,
I've noticed
that's a wild one too, because that's a newer phenomenon, not super new, but because it was parabolan, and it was from France, and it came in like 76 milligram ampules, and no one ever saw it or got it unless you were like a pro, and and because I think they even stopped producing that in like 96, and so it was like. It was an interesting thing, but no one really, it wasn't viewed as like the way it is now. It was like, oh, that'd be cool if I could get that, but it'd be cool if I could get Masteron. It'd be cool. Everything was hard to get. It was very difficult to get things. And so it's interesting now how that has just taken off. I mean, with some merit, because it's a pretty potent, compound, but that's really probably it's got to be like a post 2000. It's past the mid 2000, like 2005 even. It wasn't like, no one thought of it as like the way it is now. It was just another compound. It was an interesting one. It was not not a must-have or not a magic pill. And I don't know when it really started to become what it is now, but now it's like ubiquitous. Like people don't even work out know about Tren.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the main influencers was Tren that had pushed it onto the scene. I don't know if you know who he is. His full name is Dawson Weiss, but he had earned this moniker of D-Tren. Would talk about using thousands of milligrams of Tren per week, and this hilarious character of basically like F society, F the guy that's ahead of you, whatever, blast Tren, bang women, this whole thing, right? And of course, who is going to be attracted to that kind of persona? Angsty, pubescent teenage boys.
I mean, I'm an old man, and that sounds pretty good. I mean,
right, exactly. So they ate that stuff up, and he earned a massive name for himself. In person, he's a very calm guy, but online, it just made Tren such a phenomenon that any joke would be like, "Oh, like she just broke up with me. I'm getting on Tren."
Yeah,
it was always that.
Yeah, it's really funny to watch that unfold, because I remember a time before that. So, didn't mean to cut you off, but
yeah, I think Justin, what was it? What was the thing that was out there, but it was really hard to get? Was it Finaplex?
Yeah, well, that was you could just go to a cattle supply, like Tractor Supply. You could get that in Cinevex. Cinevex was testosterone with estrogen combined. They were for cattle. They were pellets that would get injected like under the skin of the cattle, but you could crush them up and then mix it with some benzyl alcohol, benzoate, and some cottonseed oil or grapeseed oil or any oil. And and that was a lot. And that might have even been part of it, because back then, because there was no Chinese underground stuff, there was some Mexican stuff, but you'd have to like find a guy in Romania who would mail you like ampules of test in a tape deck case, and so, but Finaplex, you could just go to the farmers, go to like Tractor Supply and get. And so I think that was part of the reason it didn't have like such a mystique, because it was so easy to get. It was like the easiest one to get. So a lot of people probably started with that. And a lot of people would just like eat the ampules, and it's not really orally bioavailable very much, but it's so strong that, if you've never taken anything, and it's even being a poor bioavailability, it's still going to do something, because it's Tren. But it's really weird, because like back then they don't do that anymore. They still sell Finaplex, I'm sure, but I don't like. I live in the country. There's Tractor Supply, and you don't see that stuff on the shelf anymore. I'm sure there's been regulations, but I think a lot that might have been part of it, is that it was so easy to get. People, it's like, if it's that easy to get, it can't be that good.
catch Tanner up to the good old days, it might have been, there may or may not have been message boards with step-by-step instructions.
Oh yeah,
It's
animal
pre-social media.
animal kits. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've scoured around. I mean, as part of my researching, like trying to catch up to speed with what everyone knows, like I've been around a couple message boards, but a lot of them have died out.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
kind of graveyards and you can't really find that stuff anymore. Some places have tried to archive it and like keep it still available, but it's a
Yeah, I think
futile
like
effort.
professional muscle and intense muscle are still fairly active, and that's about it. It's
Yeah.
and things change. Like that's before message boards, there was chat rooms. AOL chat room, like miss.fit.weights was the one, the very very first like chat board about bodybuilding and stuff. And things change, but I think there's I miss that because there was like it was much easier to parse the things you wanted, because it was organized and there were sections on nutrition, sections on gear, general sections. Where with social media, there's so much stuff, but unless you save posts, and posts don't go into very much detail, so you get
Yeah.
a ton of information at a very high level, very minimal information.
Yeah.
So what is it you're seeing? Like, what are maybe some misconceptions out there, just kind of that your posts that are getting the most engagement and conversations or questions? What do you see out there?
Yeah, I think one of the main things is a lot of kids when they want to get into enhancements. First, the fact that they're so well known, I think, is also kind of a problem because when you start out as an early kid, probably like 20, 30 years ago, you don't even know what gear is. All you know is you go into the gym, you've seen your favorite bodybuilder, he trains super super hard, you just eat right and train like him. But now I think there's this idea of, oh, there is an enhancement that I can get, but I'm scared of needles. Like, can I do like Anavar only? Can I do like D-ball only? Like, what kinds of things can I do? And a lot of kids kind of end up messing themselves up if they're going to go down that road. There's some ways to do it with like minimal issues, but I would still say it's probably not the best starting approach.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing, is that the generally the most harmful compounds are the orals,
Yeah.
and that's what people want to start with. And even worse, the SARMs and peptides, which are basically, I mean, the pharmaceutical companies aren't dumb. If things work and are low side effect, they're not going to be sitting there on the gray market. They're going to be a pharmaceutical product,
Yep.
And so that's the interesting thing, is that that's the first step people take, and those are just some of those are terrible on the liver.
Yep. And that's what a lot of people have as a misconception, is that SARMs are a first step, and then it's like, oh, now I'm ready for steroids. Now I can go do this. And you also have to be careful, because a lot of these younger guys, they don't really take no as an answer very well. So if someone's coming to me and saying like, hey, I want to do SARMs, and I say, oh, don't do SARMs, they're probably going to do it anyway. So there are cases where you have to come at it from a different approach and say, all right, if you are going to do this, what are some things you could possibly do to minimize the issues that you experience? Those are usually the main things I see, where they want to dip their foot halfway into the enhancement pool without going all the way in and putting in the commitment that it requires out of guys.
Yeah. And I wonder if
just the tip.
Yeah. I wonder if that's like, like you said, just the mindset of it, where they're thinking they're not doing it because that's like the bad stuff and the other stuff's the good stuff. Well, actually, like, we've talked about it before, but ran a medical management company for a while. It's an area I'm really interested in. And I looked at a lot of young guys' blood work, and they're like, I swear I didn't take anything, but all their signaling was shut down. Their system was down, tons of issues. And then you're like, well, wait a minute. Did you take any SARMs? They're like, yeah. Like, well, that shut you down, and you got all these extra side effects from it. So, and I think they genuinely thought that they weren't, it's legal or whatever, because I got on the website and they didn't realize that
you can't blame them.
Right.
We all would have thought the same thing, unless, it's not like you can't expect every 22-year-old kid to be an expert in pharmacology. Some of them might have taken pharmacology or, been biochem majors, but most of them aren't,
Yeah.
So it's a lot to expect of kids who, just a few years ago, were living with their parents still, and maybe still even are, it's, you can't expect them to be experts on all these things. It's a real kind of crappy thing that so many young people are just completely ruin their, HPTA, shutting themselves down, and in their mind, they haven't even taken anything.
Yeah. That's another really big thing is, guys will think that if they do an oral only cycle or SARMs only, then they don't need you know, they're going to be fine. Their HPTA is going to come back. Their testosterone is going to be full, back what it was before, right? And for every guy, that's not always the case. Even for like guys who want to do one cycle, there are some cases where guys come back and their testosterone is not even a fraction of what it was. And you got to really set them straight and realize like, hey, just in case, are you willing to be on TRT for life? You know, are you willing to make that big commitment? You have to set it in front of them that it's not just, you know, I get to dip my toes in the water and I'm done with this. I'll go do something else now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen, just working with some of the medical practitioners too. I've seen some young guys really fortunate because they were shut down pretty bad. They did a combination of some lifestyle, dietary things, but then Kisspeptin was one. I mean, obviously you have your HCG, which isn't really made on the regulated pharmacy market anymore. That's not the case, but like Kisspeptin was a good peptide to help get things going, to kind of turn the signaling on, and luckily it just stayed on. And there's a few other compounds that they used, gonadotropin, stuff like that. But anyway, so it was really interesting to, you know, to see that, and you feel kind of fortunate for those guys, as you mentioned, like they were, you know, 19 and took some things and didn't even get the results they wanted, or, you know, had some breast tissue buildup or hair loss, or, you know, all these other side effects because they didn't realize like the cascade of events that happen from taking those compounds. And so is that an area you would say you lean towards with your content? Is it more like trying to educate guys in your age group, and a mixture of, you know, I guess, what is your angle with a lot of your content, and what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So one of the main things is those kinds of common issues, because a lot of guys, I mean, they're young, they're excitable, they want to just dive right in. And so they get into it before they've prepared everything. You know, they might not even have a PCT on hand if that's something they want to do. They might have only bought enough vials for the next like 4 weeks. Like, what are they going to do after that?
That's a big one. They got no money. I remember riding that risk. You know, you don't got the money to buy more than like 2-month chunks at a time.
Yeah.
And
I always tell guys, because this happened to me once, was if you're going to be doing that kind of thing, always buy one extra vial, because I dropped my last vial of test once.
Man, yeah.
And I was very lucky to get another one in time. But, you know, that feeling of watching it shatter and, you know, being SOL, it's not
my
great.
first show prep 8 weeks out, ran out. My stuff never came.
Oh, no.
And it was like, this like sucked, because you're like halfway into prep, you know, and working your butt off. And so that was the capital city. And so I ended up getting some Masteron, and that was like the only thing I like did for like the last 6 weeks or something, which I'm like, I mean, 6 weeks, there's not much that can happen. And that's pretty much what you'd be using anyways. But yeah, that was like a moment of panic.
Yeah. So I advise things like that for guys, just like the pure basics, because they honestly don't have any idea at all. And so things like, I get DMs every morning and I go through them every morning because I really want to help these guys out. They just have tons and tons of questions about whatever the situation is. Like, hey bro, like my balls are shrinking, like please help. Like my girlfriend thinks it looks weird. All these like funny questions I get every day. And I'm like, all right, take some HCG, you know, do this, do that. And you can kind of get them set right on the right track. Things like hair loss, things like gyno. A lot of these pushed me towards the direction of helping to push out the like materials and items that my research chemical company sells, because a lot of them are designed to combat the side effects of steroids. So, you know, something like raloxifene, right? If you need to reverse your gynecomastia, that can help a little bit, right?
What's your company?
Yeah, so it's called a Research M. The most popular product is Cialis that guys will take before they work out. That has been another really popular thing with younger guys, because they know it's not steroids, but it's like the closest thing they can get to that enhanced pump. I remember being a natural and then getting enhanced and feeling things build up, and every workout was just better than the last. That kind of feeling is similar for guys who are natural and use Cialis for the first time.
Cialis will rate free test pretty decently also. Interesting. It's there's a lot of interesting side benefits, you know, prostate health, the sexual benefits, of course, you know, but there's I see pretty like surprising spike in and I don't have like, you know, 10,000 person clinical data on this, but I see a pretty interesting spike in free test and reduction in steroid hormone binding globulin levels when people are on 5 to 10 milligrams of Cialis. I got a question real quick. Are you left-handed?
No, I'm right-handed.
Do you snowboard goofy-footed though?
It's been a while since I've snowboarded, actually. Like ever since COVID hit, it's been really difficult for me to get out to the mountains.
But you snowboard right foot forward, right?
No, I think left foot forward actually.
Because it looks like on your snowboard behind you because your left foot's turned.
My camera's flipped.
Ah,
Yeah.
I was trying to do a little detective work.
Deceived you a little bit there.
Good eye, good eye.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, then. But then your guitar is correct. Your guitar looks right-handed.
Yeah. I mean, my board is switched, so maybe it's just flipped the other way. I honestly have no idea. It's been so long, my brain's thrown those thoughts.
For the
out.
guys on audio listening in, Justin, nothing misses his eye in video. That's why I blur my background. So no. No, I am curious though, because and Justin, this is more a question for you. So I remember at the clinic, and I don't remember the dosage off the top of my head. But guys were taking Cialis and pre-workout at the same time, and that seemed to cause some issues. Have you guys heard of that or seen that, either of you?
Well, I mean, you get like if you got like Cialis is like super potent NO2, and so if you're taking NO2 boosters, but I mean, I haven't really seen that, no, but you could see that there would be a potential for trying to think, because you're going to get very dilated blood vessels, and so you could get a pretty big drop in blood pressure. But generally, if it's a stimulant-based pre-workout, I would say that probably not going to happen because you're going to vasoconstriction but if you're on a stimulant free that's really focused on pump and you combine that with like a mega NO2 booster like Cialis, I can see someone who's naturally low blood pressure kind of getting orthostatic, laying on a bench and popping up and the blood pressure drops.
The main side effects that I see, especially because I have so many guys in DMs like talking about it, is tadalafil can cause this headache phenomenon. And also nasal congestion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Those are the main ones that guys will complain about. And some people can't even tolerate 5 milligrams. Some people like 2.5 milligrams, they're still getting issues. Whereas there's definitely people out there who I know have done 20 milligrams, 40 milligrams, no issues. They just get in the gym and rip it. Exactly what you're saying about blood pressure. It's an interesting thing for guys who are, using gear or love stimulant pre-workouts. It's kind of a way to offset it a little bit when you're in the gym. Especially now that DMAA is a very popular stimulant among younger guys too. I feel the same way.
That's just straight up crack.
Yeah,
it's not even to me. That's not even a fun stimulant. Like even like Adderall, you're like wired. I don't want to work out if I take it. I just want to like read. But like you're wired. But like DMAA, you're just like. I just feel like I'm on PCP or something. Like I just feel like anxious.
Yeah.
It's not even like a good stimulant. Yeah, I know the young guys like that, but it blows my mind because every time I tried it, I'm like, this is terrible.
Right.
I just feel uncomfortable. I'm wired, but not a good kind.
The vasoconstriction is just the worst of it. I mean, if you're not getting blood flow to your muscles during your workout, I personally think that's just a nightmare.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's why our pre-workout we like we add anxiolytics, L-theanine, and 10 grams L-citrulline, add beta-alanine, but like everything was designed that we want to be able to put caffeine and teocrine in it and create like a strong stimulant effect, but a strong adenosine blocking effect. But then we didn't want the vasoconstriction, we didn't want the jitteriness, so we don't have yohimbine in it, and then we have the L-theanine and KSM, and we've had rhodiola rosea, anxiolytic. Well, we don't have that in the current formulation though.
Right.
It tastes terrible. It's but I'd like to maybe try to get that in again.
So what else are you seeing out there? What are some other things that are kind of maybe either misconceptions or concerns where you're like, oh man, like this is kind of scary. Like what are some things you're hearing?
Yeah. I think now that there's so much information out there, guys have like, the ice cream shop of flavors of gear right in front of them.
Right.
And a lot of the older practices are kind of like fading away a little bit. Some guys who know their stuff are getting into really interesting experiments. I had some guy reaching out to me asking me about equipoise and estradiol valerate, if he could do a cycle of just that. Interesting theory. But then there's other guys out there who's like, oh, like my buddy gave me this vial of Tren, like I'm going to do my first cycle, what do I have to do here to do it right? I'm like, well, first of all, 0 milligrams of Tren, that's your protocol, and then like find something else. All of this stuff where a lot of guys, it's very easily accessible now. I mean, you do a couple Google searches, you've got like 3, 4, 5 sources right in front
That's
of you.
crazy. Yeah.
And of all people to have that kind of access, the last people who need that are people who don't know their left foot from their right foot when it comes to gear.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest issues. And I get a lot of questions asking for sourcing. And in that case, it's, you know, the first thing you want to do is research, because I tell guys all the time, when you know enough to use this stuff properly, you will know where to get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the very good point that so many young people don't get and don't want, because I wouldn't have wanted either. I would have wanted to just ask someone and have it handed to me. But like most things in life, if you just learn about it, the things you want will appear. You know, the time you take reading everything, you're going to come across and you're going to find the source as part of that without even intending to, and then you're going to be ready for it. You mentioned EQ earlier, equipoise. That's an interesting one for me, because I've seen that go. It's funny how like the general consensus opinion of things change over time. Because I remember
fads.
I remember when a time when EQ was useless, because that was always a standard one for me, because I don't do well with 19 NORs, so I wouldn't use DECA, and I was always just a 2-compound guy testing EQ. That was like my standard off-season cycle. I always responded well to it. And for years, I'd get flack to be like, that's such a waste. That stuff doesn't do anything. Maybe you get some increase, because it was back then, it would raise red blood cells and give you better appetite.
Yeah.
You know? And that's all anybody would say. And you hear it was garbage. And then I remember one time I saw someone talk about anxiety with EQ. And I was like, that's interesting. I've never heard anyone mention anxiety. And now you even mention EQ, and it's like anytime you mention anyone, I can never take that. It causes anxiety. People get the worst anxiety from that. It's really interesting to me, because, and then, you know, and it's also now there's some renal toxicity effects with it that weren't really known early on or years ago. But it's interesting to, you know, that's gone from, you know, don't even bother. It's so weak. There's no point. You don't feel anything, to now it's, I can't take it. It's, you know, it makes me so anxious.
Right. EQ's been an interesting one for me. I don't know what it was, but it was one that I was drawn to because there was such little literature about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, you know, there's no human studies. There's only a couple where like they had bodybuilders who said, yeah, I'm using EQ. And then they just like tested their blood work and stuff. There was a very popular video. I know More Plates, More Dates had covered this stuff. He makes a lot of content. He kind of what got me into researching this enhancement stuff a little bit, where he had talked about equipoise potentially aromatizing or like having a metabolite that behaves a lot like synthetic E1. And so there's this theory that's like, okay, you have such a surplus of E1 in your body that it makes it difficult for E2 to bind to the receptor site. And so you get this like induced state of like low estrogen, because all of the E1, which is the weaker estrogen, is binding things up. And so some people were saying that like that is the theory behind the anxiety of it, like why it would be causing anxiety. And so if you were to maybe use like testosterone at twice your dose of EQ, then maybe that would counter it out. But, you know, everyone's body is different. And again, we know so little about it. It always kind of remains that little mysterious.
Yeah, I've always felt the same way, because it's one that just I always responded well to. And so I'd have to tell people, like, most people don't agree with me, but it was always just kind of my go-to anabolic, because I had no issues with side effects, no anything. And I never get elevated red blood cell count from anything. So that, like, whether or not it does that didn't matter to me. Nice. You know, and and I never had anxiety. I felt amazing. I always felt great on it.
Yeah.
What are the side effects for you? Greatness.
Yeah, I see a lot of you know, I think there's a combination of things, right? Like people, you know, no one's gonna want to hear this, but starting way too early. B, starting and really not making any sense. I mean, I stumbled in it was all genetics. I was talking to an IFBB pro, young pro, when I did his blood work, and I'm just like, wait, what are you taking? And it was just mind blowing how there seemed to be not really much logic to that approach. Again, looked fantastic. Blood work was trashed. And so we had a really interesting conversation about, you know, I think early 20s, right? And it was just, hey, how long do you want to compete for? You know, 10 years or so. I don't know, you know, mid, late 30s. Okay. And we looked at, you know, liver and kidney enzymes. It's like, at the rate you're going, you know, one of the compounds I remember was Superdrol. I was like, so how much do you really think you got out of that? And it was like, after you lost the water, how much did you get out of it? And it was like, well, not that much. I was like, so is it, let's just say you got an extra 2 pounds more than if you would have taken a cleaner compound. theoretically, right? So a pound or two of muscle, maybe less, maybe. Let's give you that for argument's sake. But he was taking glutathione and a few other. This episode is brought to you by First Detachment. Battle tested. Are you? Find your battle today at firstdetachment.com. Compounds to help with like liver, kidney, and toxicity, and he's still markers were way off the charts. I'm like, so you were taking pharmacology to counteract that. And, so my point is, if you're going to be doing this for the next 10, 12 years, like this isn't really the path, for that extra pound that allegedly you could put on more. Again, I just gave him that. So I just found that really interesting, just kind of trying to, talk through it to like, look at the big picture. Like I'm not here to tell you what to do or what not to do. I just want to ask you some questions to make you think about what you're doing,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the hardest things with the sport is that everyone that starts out and they want to be pro and they want to compete forever, but you don't reach your peak really in the physique sports until your late 30s. And classic still young, early, new enough where that may be different because that's, a little more genetically shaped, related. But as far as like men's bodybuilding, for when your skin thins out, when you've had enough years to really put on the mass if you look, every bodybuilder since like Lee Haney has been late 30s, 38 to 42, where every Mr. Olympia, has been late 30s, and that's really your peak, like 38 to 42. It's like remarkably old for a sport, but it's a sport that you get really into in your late teens, and so it's and then add to that, you probably get about a decade or so of really pushing the anabolics and the GH before the side effects start piling up. Specifically like with GH, the acromegaly type side effects, your torso widens, the constriction, like all the swelling, the constrictions on the nerves give you kind of like that turn up leg look. You kind of like lose your triceps. You see guys lose their brachioradialis here. You see that a lot of pros. This muscle just disappears. It's part of that like carpal tunnel issue. And anyway, so you get an age group where you don't have patience because you haven't lived long enough to have patience, None of us did, and none of us ever will at that age,
right?
Where you need to be patient because if you want to really be your best at the sport, you need to be able to move that 10-year where you're really pushing things. That 10-year thing needs to start at age 30. Doesn't mean you can't take things before then, but it means you really need to be smart about it if you want to be able to be at your. And most people aren't going to be pro bodybuilders, and most people aren't going to be successful pro bodybuilders. But if you have that ability and you move that, you do that 10-year envelope when you're 22, that you'll never see your peak.
Yeah, it is an added complicating factor with social media that guys have such an advantage to have an incredible physique when they're young, and a lot of these younger guys are feeling the pressure of being surrounded by so many incredible, successful physiques. And so they're pushing things very young.
Right.
They're burning the candle at both ends by doing that. And it might be shortening their careers, but at least in their minds, they're catapulting themselves into the range of success early on, getting ahead of the pack, even if it is going to sacrifice their career down the line, but at least they have that foundation there.
Yeah. It's so hard. It's why there's so few millionaires, if everyone could be a millionaire if they just put $5 a week away when they're in an investment in like the S&P 500 when they're like 15, and everyone could do it. Everyone could put $5 a week away, and then everyone would be a multimillionaire, when they retire. But none of us do because that's so far in the future. It's hard, and it's the same thing here. And I've never, working with younger clients, I've never found other than you can explain it to them, but I understand. I was that age, and I wouldn't have listened, and I wouldn't have been able to really view you can't really view your 20 years in the future when you've only lived 20 years,
Yeah.
So I've never found a good way to really get through with that. But
now, Tanner, are you looking to do more like a classic or bodybuilding, or what is your goals?
Yeah. So, I don't have a full gauge on my genetics quite yet. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'd be able to tell right away if I was, a super freak or something like that. But I really like the bodybuilding class. And so I'd like to get into that, even if it means, at the peak of my career, I'm like a middleweight. But I still think that shape of it, just the honest to goodness competition there, it's really what I appeal to. A lot of my guys in my age group, especially with Chris Bumstead being as big of an icon as he is, they all love classic. All these guys love classic. They want to be aesthetic, all this stuff, right? And then I also really liked men's physique too. Interestingly, I liked when the guys were getting really big, on the freaky side, and then they just put out the notification that it's what they're like putting height classes and weight
Yeah,
classes on them now.
weight limits and stuff. And they were going to have to do that because it was getting their dudes were like Mr. Olympia. I mean, the men's class, they're freaking jacked. Like
open guys in board shorts.
Yeah, that's where. Yeah, it was. I mean, and even bigger, like because they didn't have to waste a whole day. I mean, most of them still do leg work to some extent, but they didn't have to waste the recovery. That's a deep recovery hit on really hard leg workouts, and so their upper bodies were just incredible,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention with the small legs, the upper body's going to look even that much more cartoonish or bigger, right? Like popping without the legs.
And like a lot of the like what causes a blocky waist and stuff is related to leg and like hinge lift, because if you take someone from the side and their erectors are that thick, it doesn't matter if their waist can be tiny, but now they look like they have a big blocky waist, and that's another benefit is you can have like a really freakishly tiny waist because you don't have the thickness built, through the erectors and stuff that come from squats and heavy deadlift and hinge movements.
So what else are you seeing out there with like peptides? Are you using have you seen a lot of guys using like growth hormone, GHRPs and things like that?
Yeah, so peptides have been really interesting because they're kind of a way for a lot of guys to voyage into injectables. I know me personally, when I was first getting into all of this, the idea of, dang, I'm just like going to start sticking a needle in my body, was kind of like a bit of a big jump. And so I'd started out with melanotan, actually. So I picked up melanotan and then just started using little subcutaneous injections, getting used to what it feels like to stick some metal in my body. And then I got comfortable with it. And then when it came time to do the intramuscular, it wasn't that big of a deal. Any like slight fears about needle fear and phobia, just like totally out the window. And so a lot of guys kind of start the same way. Or if they don't even want to commit to injectable steroids at all, then they can leverage a lot of peptides to kind of move towards the goals that they're looking for. There are a lot of helpful ones from what I've seen. BPC 157 and TB 500. A lot of guys have very good things to say about those. Some of the growth hormone releasing hormone peptides, CJC 1295, ipamorelin, sometimes MK 677. That one I can say some stuff about, but
it's an interesting compound. I think that's very interesting. Incredibly watery, but if you want to get strong, if you want to get bloated strong, that's a great compound to add.
Yeah. A lot of younger guys, they put it in that same SARM family kind of thing because it's an oral thing and it gives me gains. And so in their mind, it is a SARM, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of them are just like, chomping at the bit to get on this stuff, not realizing, well, if you take it in the morning, you might be lethargic and sleepy all day.
Yeah.
If you got to be ready for the hunger. Yeah. Some guys are like, oh, well, it's growth hormone, so I can use it to cut, right? Well, yeah, good luck with the appetite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the growth hormone aspect would, but the hunger, and then and then guys with high blood pressure or that are on the edge of high blood pressure, when you gain 15 pounds of water weight, you're no longer on the edge of high blood pressure. Yeah.
The insulin sensitivity really gets guys too.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of physiques go from like pretty nice structure, everything, and then they just start getting fatter and flatter all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Not great.
Yeah, I see it like a pretty substantial, several decimal place points of A1C on blood work where someone uses MK with no like berberine or no GDA type stuff. I'll see, their A1C jump, like someone with a really good A1C, like 4.9, I'll see it jump to like 5.2, still in a normal range, but the high end of normal. And that'll happen pretty quickly in like a 3-month period with MK.
Yeah.
Well, it's
even worse than real GH. Even GH doesn't seem to do it that quickly.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Well, it's interesting how it's works a little bit different because the ghrelin receptor agonist, but it's also the blood serum levels of IGF-1 are active for 24 hours, where your other, like your CJCs and things, are more of like a pulse. So they pulse just like natural, like your body. And MK is it is not as natural, I guess, with your flow, which is kind of interesting when you look at it. But what do you typically see people use with that, like as far as amounts?
With MK, the sweet spot, or at least the numbers that I feel okay with in other guys, especially younger guys that are getting on this, it's about like 10 milligrams a day that they're usually using. I see some guys, they're a little more aggressive. They want to push up to 20. I'll add this too. A lot of guys will come to me, and I have a lot of young guys in my audience. They're like, hey, MK677 is like growth hormone, right? Can I use that to get taller? that is a really complicated issue, especially, you're like 16, 17, your growth plates are basically closed anyway. I don't really know what you're hoping to get out of this by blasting yourself with MK, potentially putting in some prolactin feedback loops and really messing yourself up.
Yeah, the prolactin stuff, especially. I mean, that's one of the big things with acromegaly is you have chronically low testosterone levels, and it's largely related to the high prolactin levels. And you don't want prolactin. Prolactin sucks because the refractory period after you finish in the bedroom, your body releases prolactin. And that's the same thing that women produce to secrete milk. But men produce it, and it basically that's like the clarity hormone because you produce that and you don't think about anything else. But it's really anti-dopamine, and it's really counter to testosterone. And so you raise it and all of it, anything, like hyperprolactinemia is going to really fuck you up as far as your physique, because you're going to have chronically low testosterone. You're not going to be able to finish in bed, and you can even get gyno from that. And that used to be kind of the joke for a while with Tren. A lot of the power lifters would do insane Tren cycles, and they would squirt milk from their, which is pretty wild. That's pretty unnatural. But power lifters are a nutty group, and they take pride in being especially crazy, I guess.
Yeah.
Tough to follow that one.
Yeah, I know. Geez,
it's tough to follow
every time I talk about men lactating,
it just stops the room.
That's always the conversation killer.
What type of men? Well, we don't want to talk too much about that.
Yeah, I ruin every Christmas dinner talking about men lactating.
How do you define a man? Well, we'll get canceled off YouTube if we talk about that. And curious too, just kind of like I said, a lot of it was my experience more in like a more controlled kind of medical setting. But are people using these like growth hormone peptides back to back to back, or are they taking breaks from it?
So it depends. What I've seen with MK in particular is that especially skinny guys, they don't really have an appetite. They want something to make their life a little easier. They start using MK and they run it throughout their entire bulk until they're chubby and then stop. Mm-hmm. I have seen ipamorelin and CJC 1295. I've seen some guys decide to use that long term, as in like year round potentially. And I guess it stems from the idea there's like some guys that use growth hormone year round, and they're just doing the same thing.
Yeah, one of the things that, gosh, I can't point to a study on this, but I remember talking about in our clinicals was that generally it was like a roughly 10 week, 3 months, and then taking about a month off where they had rotated different growth hormone peptide because the body can create antibodies against it, which would make it less effective, or wouldn't the binding affinity would go down of it. And they would see that in blood work too. So I was just curious if that was something out there in the that you're hearing at all, of people kind of taking these breaks from it, or because it is a little different because it's more of a self-regulating thing because you're signaling the release of the growth hormone versus like exogenous growth hormone that you're just putting in. On a safety factor, like one thing that was I kind of liked about it is like anybody really can take it because there's upper limits to it. So if you take too much, your body's only going to produce as much growth hormone as it possibly can at its cap, and then once it's capped, it's not going to produce more. Mm-hmm. So that signaling is just going to produce it. So it's more of a controlled or exogenous growth hormone. You can obviously take as much as you want, as we found out recently.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like I think is interesting because I always say like the sport has not really advanced since peptides came along. So you take, like, if you look at bodybuilding in the 1940s, it was completely different from the 50s and 60s when steroids started coming out. So obviously steroids dramatically improved the physiques, and then you had them using them in, more in larger amounts through the 70s and 80s, and, a steady progression. And then you have a big jump in the physique levels around 93 when growth hormone use started becoming more regular, more common. And then like 96 was like the 96 Olympia was like the first insulin Olympia where guys were just insulin full. And you see like another kind of jump, and then somewhere around that time after like, steroids and growth hormone insulin are all put in the equation, you almost get a cap. And that's kind of like your Ronnie Coleman years,
Yeah.
And so you're waiting for the next new thing to come out. And the next new thing was peptides. but the sport didn't really advance, because of it. And that's kind of why. But and I think they can play an important role, but I think it's a different role. They're not going to play the role of making you Mr. Olympia, but as far as optimizing health, putting your hormones in an optimal range to be more athletic, to be more muscular than the average person, absolutely. But they do kind of have that self-limiting effect where, like what Joe said. And so it's an interesting thing in that they can have really good benefit. Like if you want to live longer, you want to be more healthy, you want to be leaner, carry more muscle, they're a really pretty healthy way to go about doing it. If you want to be a professional, physique competitor, that's probably not your best route.
Right.
They're not going to dramatically change the physique, but I think it improves the quality of life for a lot of competitors, and especially their longevity in the sport. Now that there's tons of blood pressure medications that are a lot more available, these guys can stay a lot healthier year round. And especially things like even like injury prevention peptides with how big these guys are and how much they can push around. Obviously the growth hormone helps with that, but I'm sure there's like other applications for things in there as well.
Oh, the BPC. Yeah. I mean, that's been like I sometimes wonder, because if you look at powerlifting, the powerlifting numbers have absolutely exploded in the last decade.
Yeah.
And it correlates fairly well for when BPC started coming out on them. and because that's one of the big things, because when you're setting new records, like a new bench press record, a new deadlift, a new all-time squat records, like these upper limit numbers, you get like one or two shots at it before you're injured. I mean, you don't get to make very many runs at a 500 kilogram deadlift. It's not like, you don't just walk in the gym every day and try that. That's like you prep for a year, and every workout is a risk for a career-ending injury. And and so you get a handful of tries. I think there's a guy, Andrei Markov in Russia, who's tried 500 like 6 times. And I don't think he's got it yet. He's been very close, but that's 6 reps, and that's the most anyone's ever tried. So you don't get very many chances on that, but you used to get far less. It used to be like you made one big run at an all-time world record, like Lilla Bridges, things like that. Other than Ed Cohn, it was pretty much you made one big run, and if you didn't get injured, you got those big numbers, and you were hoping to get your next big meet. But almost inevitably, you got injured at some point getting on that next big meet. Right. Where now guys are having really extended careers and able to put up massive numbers meet after meet. And I wonder how much that plays a role. And I think it's pretty well correlated. If you look at like powerlifting records were like this, they're like the raw records, and then boom, just shooting straight up. And that delta point is really about the time BPC at 157 and TB 500 came out.
Yeah,
I'm still in every conversation.
I just want to talk over Tanner there, but well, I find it interesting too. Is it's from the human stomach, right? Which is really interesting. BPC, and it works by just creating those, helping, not helping, but it creates new blood vessels, right? So, I've also seen a combination of what's interesting with BPC is one, like you can take it orally and it can work or not work. Like it definitely helps with gut health. But it's really, I had a couple of physicians that use it a lot, but they were not fans of it. But I've seen it work great for people, knee surgery specifically. They cut their recovery time in half, and then some are just swear by like you have to inject in the area directly. So just kind of a mixture out there. But just curious, kind of out there in the gym world, what kind of application are you seeing with BPC? How long are they taking it? What are those? Is it? What does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, quickly, because I know you're involved in the medical world. I know I've heard some people talk about platelet-rich plasma injections, and they have negative interactivity with BPC 157. Have you heard anything about that? Or
I have not. That's interesting, though. No, but
okay. I think it was Seth Ferosi's doctor might have said something about that, but I need to double check some things.
Yeah,
I've been poking around for it. Yeah, because like I think he was saying about how if someone was going to come in and he was going to operate on them, he would not want them to do BPC leading up to it because it would interfere with the PRP. Somehow.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see a pathway there. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I'm gonna read into that right when we get off.
Yeah, I'm super curious about it. So as far as BPC goes, what I've seen is what's interesting is because there's a lot of people out there who don't want to inject stuff. They whatever the reason, they don't want to do it because they live with their parents, or like, you know, they don't want needles around, or they're scared of needles. They want another option. And so nasal spray BPC 157 has become pretty popular, where guys can just take a couple sprays of that and then go about their business and get the benefits of it. I don't know if there's any studies on bioavailability of the nasal spray, but it seems like these guys are reporting improvements in like, oh, like my left shoulder hurts and now it's getting better. So that's one thing I notice in the gym community. Guys are always innovating and trying to find ways around
Yeah,
things.
that's the mucous membranes are, I mean, real thin. You know that I actually used to do that with Adderall,
Oh yeah.
and make it just with saline. And because I hate, like I don't come across it every once in a while. Like, but if I took like a full dose, I would not want to work out. And so I was like trying to find ways I could like get a quick boost if I needed energy. And so I made nasal spray out of it. I did it a couple times, but I would have no idea what the dose was, but it was probably like, 5 milligrams, which is a pretty low dose, but it would get really quick, get in really quickly. And I'd get kind of like, I'd wake up and be ready to train, but I wouldn't be jittery. I wouldn't want to study or read a book, which is what it does if I take like a full dose.
Yeah. A lot of people take that and they're applying it to everything, which I think is a little bit concerning because, again, we just have so little information on this. So if you are going to be using a nasal spray version of like some random peptide like ipamorelin or CJC, you're a lab rat to make that.
Yeah, you got to be careful too, because the mucous membranes are thin. And if you've ever seen someone with coke nose, where it eats through the septum and their nose collapses, I mean, you are at a risk for that if you're using it daily, especially for years.
Yeah. So you have to be a little bit careful about something like that. But melanotan 2 is another really popular one, especially with you'll see the rare female followers that I do have. They don't want to inject anything. They don't want anything like that. But of course, they want to be tan. They want to look nice for the summer, things like that. So,
are you seeing what about like the sex drive from melanotan?
So for me personally, it's really strong. And at the time I was using melanotan and I got on my first cycle. And it was like, I would drill a hole in anything that looked at me. It was really bad. But especially being as young as I am,
like
too.
Tuck it under your belt when you're walking around.
Yeah, it was like being in puberty all over again. I mean, it was random boners all the time. So,
well, that's where they got PT 141 from, which is they're giving it to like 80-year-olds, and it just turns on that neurological pathway for sex drive, and it works great. Like I've had some dirty old doctors be like, "I love this stuff." I'm like, "Oh boy!"
If you have an erection that lasts longer than 4 hours, call your friend and brag about it.
Call your friend, bring her over.
Yeah.
You see the same with men and women though. With that, are you hearing kind of the same effects as far as on sex drive, or is it you seen it more predominantly in men? Or I've seen it been prescribed to women.
So PT 141 is prescribed to women, I think, a little bit more than men. I don't remember exactly, but melanotan 2 in particular, I haven't noticed a ton of effects with women. I have some friends who use it, but they haven't noticed much difference. And then again, to be fair, they are using Anavar as well, and they get most of their sex drive from that. So hard to distinguish, I think. I don't know. I don't really see a super strong correlation, but definitely some guys reach out to me and they're like, "Dude, I've been getting boners all the time. Like, is this normal?" And it's like, yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Yeah,
eventually you're going to be old and they won't be there all the time.
Yeah. So,
any benefits outside of the tanning? Like I know some were talking about. I don't know if it's so small now, if this is even a highlighted benefit, but they were talking about like the lipolysis effects, like, as far as with melanotan 2, is that something that people are using it for that reason still, or
so I think
out there?
Yeah, what I've seen is, especially younger guys, is that as you start getting tanner, you start looking leaner anyway. And so there might be a little bit of overlap with direct lipolysis, but it seems like the main benefit is just the melanocyte stimulating. And so, you get the stimulation up, get your darker skin tone, all that good stuff. There are some complaints about the darker moles, that it can proliferate the number of freckles and moles on your body. Some guys really don't like that. I mean, me personally, it never bothered me, so I have no issues with it.
Yeah. Any other just kind of complications you've heard of people just in general? Maybe they're, if they're taking too much, or whatever the case is.
No, this is definitely a good topic, because a lot of people have this idea that, melanotan is like going to blow up your kidneys, your liver, all your organs are going to shut down when you use this stuff. You're going to get cancer. When we look at the actual literature, I mean, there's not like amazing literature on this, but it seems like it's mostly an overlap with just tanning bed abuse if you're abusing a tanning bed
Yeah.
and you happen to also be using melanotan, it's a little incorrect to say that the melanotan is causing the melanomas that you're experiencing.
That's a good,
Yeah.
just as a general statement, sorry to cut you off, but people don't know how to read research studies. And so many people now with social media get to talk about research studies without and the like sucralose is the big one right now. I don't know if you guys seen like this, and it's like it's completely useless for as far as what people are extrapolating from it. It's an in vitro study. They're using doses that would be like the equivalent of like 800 diet Cokes or diet sodas or Coke Zero, I think is a sucralose. Like 200 gallons of diet soda injected directly in the cell. But the main thing is it's in vitro. If you put amino acids in vitro with certain amino acids, I think glutamate would be one, in vitro with a brain cell, it will destroy the cell. It'll kill the brain cell. But so like if someone read that study, they'd be like, "Oh, you can't eat protein. Your brain cells will die." It's like no, people just don't know, and that drives me crazy because now I'm getting with clients, a lot of clients, like, "No, coach, I can't use sucralose. It'll kill my DNA." It's like, no, this is that's my biggest pet peeve. Well, not my biggest. I got lots of them, but is that it's great that people are reading research studies, but they're not reading them. They're reading the abstract, and they don't. If they try to, they don't know. It's an art to learn how to read. Like if you're in a STEM field and you go to a graduate school, you'll generally have like a seminar or something where they'll teach you how to read a research study. It's because it's not like reading a book. It's a different approach. You don't just read it. It's a multi-phase process. You have to learn what all the acronyms are. You have to organize them. And then you have to like really think, because like that sucralose study, it's not that it was a bad study, but they did a couple things that were bad. They did, I think the control group they had them something standardized with sucrose, and then I believe the non-control group, they used maltodextrin, and they considered them, they viewed them as the same. Where maltodextrin has a higher GI, it's going to affect insulin levels different. So there's just like and if all you do is read the abstract and then you take the abstract and then you output your conclusion of it out on social media, you get what we get.
The worst of it, the pathway seems to be is that these news articles pop up, especially because in the UK, melanotan was very popular and they got a ton of news attention for people abusing it. And so you'll see like Daily Mail, whatever articles start posting like this guy abused this much and he got cancer, and everyone's like, oh, it's gonna blow up your liver and stuff like that. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is even if you just understand how it works on a basic level, melanotan gives you greater, like darker skin pigmentation, therefore greater protection against UV rays. What's the thing that's like actually causing the damage in the body? It's the UV. Well, now you're more protected. If anything, guess what, folks? Melanotan is going to protect you against that cancer.
Yeah.
The funniest study that I think I've seen about it is actually, go ahead.
I think it's kind of what you alluded to earlier is that people who are taking melanotan too are going to be people really trying to tan, and so they're going to be in a subset of people that are more likely to get skin cancer, and much higher than the average, the general population. So they're going to get skin cancer more than the general population, but it's very likely they get less cancer than the people who tan as much as them who aren't taking it.
Exactly.
And those are the leaps, people that don't know how to read research studies. Person gets cancer. Hey, they were taking melanotan. Therefore, melanotan causes cancer. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
The funny study I was going to bring up is there's a study where they tested melanotan 2 on mice to see if it would reverse autistic behavior, and it actually did. So I made a video about it. It got a ton of attention. Just a fun.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. So
how do you know if a mouse is autistic?
I think
he never
measured it.
He doesn't like contact.
On their,
he doesn't make friends easily at school.
Yeah, they would they avoid people and be weird and and they're like more sociable and
that about the telomere problem with mice. Do you know about that?
How they're more prone to cancer or
well, we wasted 40 years of research. They were breeding mice from the same gene pool, and studying all this stuff and aging and telomeres. And I don't remember the whole story, but somehow there was a genetic mutation where the mice in that group had like really short telomeres, or I can't remember the whole story,
Yeah.
but no one checked it. And so they just continue breeding like from this general, like the research, like lab rat, you know, like the standard they're all like from the basics. And for like 40 years, they were doing all this aging research on basically bunk data, because it was a genetic, all the mice had genetic anomalies as far as telomere length. And that's another thing with research. It's like people don't realize, it's like when people are like, I do my research. It's like, no, like research is hard. You like peer-reviewed research, you work for months, and then to produce one paper that may or may not have any conclusions in it, and then may or may not be approved by your peers to be published, you know. And even then it's like, it's a, you know, like everything has to be on point, you know, like the things you wouldn't even think of, you know, like that the fact that you're using these rats that have this anomaly in the area that you're researching, but you would never know, you know, because it's an anomaly. So you would have to assume that maybe one rat has it. You don't think that, wait, where did this gene pool of rats come from originally? You know, what is the likelihood that this had this 1 in a billion anomaly? Well, in this case, it did.
That's the biggest thing about the studies, is that you don't really understand it unless you're in that culture and in that space, and you have the context that's not just in the text on a page. You know, if you had no idea about that rat pool breeding issue, then you'd be reading these studies thinking like, oh, like this has an effect on telomeres, this has an effect on telomeres, but all of the studies are invalidated by that, right?
Yeah, and that's what we did. I mean, not we. I mean, that's what like the aging start, like that whole like area of science did for decades before. And then can you imagine being the person that found that out? Like, and you're like, I'm sure it was a grad student too, and they had to like decide like, how do I tell my professor this? So professor, you know, the work that you've devoted your life to the last 40 years, turns out we can't use it.
Oh wow.
Well, I got a question. It's because I can't read it and it's killing me. What's your shirt say? Hey,
it says hey, your life, try astral projection.
Okay. At first I thought it was castration. I'm like, but that can't be. And then you moved and I saw it looked like the bottom I see ECT. So okay. Interesting. I should have brought one of my shirts out, but
there you go. All right, we'll transition. We'll hit a couple more. Dihexa. Tell us about Dihexa. What's going on there?
So Dihexa has been an interesting one. So for me in particular, being like college student and everything, Dihexa has been a little bit of a cognitive enhancer for some people who decide to use it. And so it's the selling point of like, okay, you can maybe not really boost your intelligence, but boost cognitive function and day-to-day function. I personally haven't tried it, so I don't know exactly the experiences with it. I plan to use it this fall, like once my classes start up again. But in the people who I have talked to about it, I mean, they notice like thoughts just flow a little smoother for them. They're energized in a way that doesn't feel jittery or like stimulated, but their brain functions a little better. These are all very vague terms, but that's you know, my spiel on it.
If you get into that whole nootropic world with any interest, give phenylparacetam a try. You don't hear much about it, but you know, the paracetams used to be like everywhere. Then they got banned. I never felt like they worked much, but you know, like if like a phenyl group, like phenylethylamine is a stimulant. Phenyl groups tend to be like stimulatory. The Russians added a phenyl group to paracetams at some point, and it was sold as a cognitive booster in Russia, prescription. And then you don't see it very much, but I would recommend giving that a try. It's a really interesting compound. It's kind of like what you just described. Like it's like you don't feel anything, but you at the end of the day you realize you were way more productive. Your brain didn't seem to get tired. You know, you seemed to like studying didn't seem to be a chore. It was a really interesting compound. It's not interesting enough for me to like go. I'm sure you can find it without much difficulty online. You can find anything, but I really wanted to produce that in a product when the paracetams were legal, but I found out about it right before they got banned. So, always late to the party.
Good stuff. What else do you have in the works? Like what do people have to look forward to coming up with content? What are some things you're, you know, are swirling around in your creative mind to kind of
so my brand in particular, my main brand, Research M, it's been very, very successful.
Can you say it slower?
Research. So it's Research M. Let's see if it has it on here. It's gonna be very small, but it's researchm.store, little RC logo right up there.
Okay.
So it's like research and chem kind of combined with the CH cut out. Okay. Double meaning of like what do you want to know about these peptides? Well, you research them. Yeah, exactly. So it's been pretty successful lately, and we just had a competition to see who could have the like biggest growth in sales. I got second place. Me and my other buddies first and third, and our boss decided to fly us all out to Tulum, Mexico, as the top 3 prize. So sometime in August, I'll be down there in that really cool like outdoor gym, the sand everywhere, those like wooden weights. Gonna be really fun.
Oh
to
yeah,
check that out. Yeah. I know Andrew Jack has been there, like all these big guys, right? That'll be cool. We'll get to experiment with that. And then also a very popular competition among younger guys, summer shredding, which is down at Alphaland. The brand Alphalete has a gym there. A lot of the new generation influencers like to go there, and so that's going to be a big gathering hub. I will be there, and we'll see, what kind of connections we form there and what kind of content I can put out. Been thinking about going around and doing a little like rate my cycle series where I hear what guys are running and then suggest some things to add to that for safety or effectiveness.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
What do you? What about plans? Business plan? Because you're a business major, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So specifically business finance. Yeah.
So what got any plans on doing that yourself? Where are you going with your brand?
Yeah. So my personal brand on social media right now, it's kind of in this state where I'm tethered to a couple other brands. I think as things grow, there's going to be that room to develop a brand of my own. I'm not sure what that might look like, especially depending on the brands I already work with. If I'm with you guys, it'd feel a little silly to start my own supplement company. Don't really want to compete with the behemoth that is First Detachment, but I'm optimistic about seeing what kinds of things I could develop there.
I'm still here. My camera just went out again.
So what's the business finance? What's the difference? So do you spend a lot of time on learning about how the whole seed funding goes, Series A, Series B?
So for me personally, it's mostly been about the stock markets. And so investing, and that could be from a personal investing standpoint or from a corporate investing standpoint. And interestingly, I had gotten into business and I really liked the basic foundations of it. I liked how companies worked and functioned, and you're really constructing something from scratch up into something really bigger than the sum of its parts. And then as I get deeper into the theoretical finance and derivatives and quant-fi, I'm a little bit like
M1 supply, M2 supply.
Yeah, you're losing the magic on me. So
when you hear there's $4 quadrillion worth of derivatives globally, and there hasn't been a quadrillion $1 quadrillion of printed money in human history. So there's 4 times the sum of legitimate money throughout history floating around as fake money basically at all times. It's wild.
Yeah, you go into that major and you're like, oh wow, I'm really gonna wonder how it works, and you end up finding out that it's mostly all imaginary fake money and gambling.
It's all fake. Yeah,
that's the biggest takeaway that I have from you as a finance major.
Yeah, that's what when I people that don't know how with the stock market, with the margin, lending, it's if you have money, you have a lot of money, because whatever you have in any brokerage account, if you have any kind of good standing with the brokerage account, you'll get at least double your money for margin loan at the click of a button.
Yeah.
So if you got $6 million in a brokerage account and you need $1 million, that's one button click, and you don't go through a bank, you don't go through anything, and but that's actually the problem with that is what we saw with the stock market, not really a crash, but a pretty big drop, is that you got so many new people coming into the market after COVID with the stimulant checks and all that $7 trillion flooding in the economy. So the stock market blows up, and margin's awesome when the stock market's going up, because if you put that margin money back into the stock market, you get twice the returns. You were getting 10%, now you got 20%. But the problem is when that reverses, because you owe your loan, rate. So the Fed raises interest rates, because margin loans around 2020 were 1% or 2%. They were free money. And then Fed raises interest rates, where now margin loans are between 7% and 8%. Well, you only get 8% in most, that's kind of like a standard, S&P 500, 8% at 10-year average over time. Well, if your loan's 8%, what are you doing? And then when the market drops, then that's what happened. And so then all these people get margin called. And then you get that big swing. That's a funny thing, or a frustrating thing, when you learn that your 401k is really dependent on how stupid a bunch of really rich people are with their fake money.
Yep. It's unfortunate in many ways, but that is the nature of things.
Yeah. You just gotta find a way to get to where you're one of the stupid guys with playing with lots of fake money.
Yeah, no kidding.
Then you're the one who wins both ways.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, good stuff. Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. It was good to kind of talk through some different things that are going out there. Let us old guys get a look into what the young bucks are up to today and what's happening out there. But no, appreciate the conversation. A lot of good things we kind of unpacked today. Anything else on your mind, Tanner, to share for either the audience or for us out there? Just kind of questions for us.
No, just stirring a little bit of hype and excitement around the potential non-stim release out of First Detachment, but we'll see when that's
it's designed. Tell people we're growing too fast. We can't keep product in stock. I mean, we're storing up our manufacturing. We're improving that. We're increasing our run size. But God, like what are we out of right now? We're growing so fast. Yeah, we have it formulated. We got a couple formulations that we're excited about, but I'm not going to tell people to stop buying our products and growing so fast, but that's our big problem right now.
Well, we should have it at the end of July, our next new product.
Suppressor Max.
Yeah, Suppressor Max is
I
super.
can finally talk about it. Yeah, we'll be the only company out there doing it, and I'm amazed we are, and I'm still scared someone's going to bring it out before us, because if anyone spent any amount of time reading the clinical research, they would see it also. But there's very clear research studies that this is going to be a really cool compound.
Yeah, absolutely. Super excited for that one, especially after how good Suppressor is.
Yeah, no, we'll have that out, and then I know that there's some other ideas. I know the non-stim, and then there's the some of the meal replacement or protein drinks.
I'd like to do a real food protein and a meal replacement. Meal replacements are hard because anytime you mix protein and carbs, you gotta it's gotta like people have different ratios of those all the time. So I don't know how we'll handle that, but I'd like to do like a protein that's not a whey isolate, not a protein that lasts like a real meal would, and then kind of the stim-free pre-workout. I kind of have two versions of it. One's more like a nootropic and kind of approach. They're very similar, just a couple compounds different. So I don't know if we'll go full bore and do the non-stim pre-workout that's also a nootropic, or two separate compounds. But yeah, the problem is got lots of ideas and lots of wants. But again, it's a good problem, but we can't keep product in stock, which is the best problem to have, but it's still a problem.
Yep.
Yeah, no, and just side note too, if you did decide to start a supplement company, we'd be happy to help you with what we learned with. So never feel that way. We're a phone call away.
One.
Misery
loves company.
Well, and it's
I know the fastest way to make what's the wording? The fastest way to make $1 million in the God, I already blew it. There's a joke about to make a lot of money is start with a lot of money.
Yeah, well,
the best way to make $1 million in the supplement industry is to have $5 million to start with, and then whittle down to only $1 million.
Well, and that's the thing too, right? Like we're doing the same thing. We're in a mastermind group for that. There's a couple conferences that we kind of have on the docket, not only conferences of us, going out and promoting what we're doing, but also conferences to learn more and more, just to kind of make sure we're staying on the top with our customer demands and things like that. So all good stuff, all fun stuff. If there weren't problems, then it'd be boring, right? And anyone else would do it. So
yeah, if it was fun, they wouldn't call it work.
There you go.
Ain't that the truth?
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Tanner,
Absolutely.
Where can people find you at? Where can they?
Yeah. So my Instagram is Tanner.Tattered. You guys can find me there. That is where I post most of my content, and all of my other information you guys can find in my FAQ. That's the first link on my Instagram bio. You can find a list of all the other sources and guys that I recommend that you check out. Before watching my stuff. And also one of the ones on that list is the First Detachment podcast series. So I encourage you to check that out.
Thanks for the shout out.
Yeah, of course.
And I want to say personally, I like what you're doing. It's cool to see, people I hate everyone throws out evidence-based now. and they don't
Right.
realize what evidence-based is, because evidence-based means you were doing legitimate clinical research. Evidence-based isn't means I know 3 people that this worked for. But so it's really cool to see someone who's out there like actually reading the studies, which has been my biggest pet peeve for 25 years in this industry. No one reads the studies. Actually reading the studies, taking the time to understand them, and then even more importantly, putting that material out in a way that other people can understand who didn't read the study.
Right.
And that's harder than people realize, because it's much easier to memorize a bunch of big words and puke it back out than it is to read something difficult, internalize it, and then be able to output it into a totally different word format, in, you know, basically in the vernacular of the people listening to you, which is that's a hard thing to do. There's a lot of very, very smart people who can memorize things and reproduce those big words, but could never explain that to, you know, an 8th grader. But that's the problem, is the average American reads at an 8th grade level. And so you need, if you want to reach a large audience, you need to not only, you know, read and understand the material, but then really understand it to the point that you can recreate it in a different language.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
just
cool.
Just translating it into a way that, you know, other people can easily access. You know, if you're scrolling on your phone, you don't want to sit there and have a science lecture all of a sudden. You want someone to tell you, like, what does it do? Should I take it? Okay, yes or no. And, you know, it's very cut dry for you.
And the problem is that most people doing that aren't reading the studies. They're just and so that's the key thing, is that you're doing it the right way. So I hope that there's, you know, any way we can get you more viewers, because I think you're doing a great service to the younger guys coming up in the sport.
Yeah.
All right, good deal. Thanks again for everybody for tuning in. First Detachment. Be sure to check us out on all of our audio platforms as well. Right now we're on Spotify. We got several others coming launching soon. And be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And that's all I got. We'll see you. Thanks for tuning in tonight.
Thanks. Oh shit, I gotta end it.
Yeah, you gotta end it.
Someone better edit this good.